are recording this session and would share it with people who registered and could not be here. And also, in case you want to ask a question by the end of the session, feel free to write it in the chat or unmute yourself so we can make this interactive and it's not just one long presentation. So once Sander is done, feel free to ask any questions and take over a discussion, make comments through the chat or by unmuting yourself. Okay, you can see your screen.
I hope the screen sharing is cool. All right, should I go ahead?
Yes.
I don't know why the taskbar is below here, but I think we have to just leave with it.
That's okay.
Anyway, it's good to see all of you who have joined. I welcome you all to my hopefully cozy living room / kitchen. I mean, I've been working from home quite some time, and I think this is the new normality here for most of us. But yeah, don't know where exactly you're joining, but beautiful day today. Had some rain and 0 sun, so I hope everyone's cozy at least. Yeah, to kick this off today, I'm going to talk about accelerating digital transformation in healthcare. And let's get this ball rolling. Quickly about the agenda. Firstly, who am I? Briefly touch base on that. Then I'll go over what is Thorgate, what we've done, and who are we. This includes quick overlook of our works. I selected some of the healthcare related works and the ones I can talk about. And then I'll dive into the main discussion of Healthtech itself. And to top it off, I'll answer your questions you might have. So me, Sander Mattas, I'm a project manager in Thorgate Digital. I also deal in client relations. As a project manager, I have to talk to clients and stakeholders. That is a very important part of my work. Before that, I worked in the transport sector. I was mostly in land transport, so big trucks and small vans was my deal. Started it off as a transport coordinator and slowly climbed myself up to start managing a few things there. But yeah, 3 years ago, I made a decision to join a university. And in between my studies, I joined Thorgate. I just felt that I need some more interesting problems to solve. And as young as I am, I have to utilize the energy I have. Yeah, the topic of my studies, I've written down economic infosystems. Actually, it's much lengthier, but long story short, it's business, finances, relations, plus IT, infosystems development, even development itself. And they've tried teaching me PHP. I didn't like it. I'm not a developer by any means. I sometimes fiddle around with things, but this is more of a hobby and feels like puzzle solving. Second, yeah, Thorgate. Thorgate is a group. The group is being managed by Thorgate management, obviously. But I myself mainly deal in Thorgate Digital, which is the main development house of the group. Here we have projects with what we work on and eventually develop and release. Quickly going over Thorgate Ventures. Thorgate Ventures is the investment arm of the Thorgate Group. We seek out interesting startups where to invest in. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here about like we have different rules on which terms we invest, but sometimes I join in to help out by looking over pitch decks and sometimes consulting with some startups, shooting off my ideas, etc. I personally don't take the decisions where those big sums of money goes, thankfully. Yeah, also Python Estonia. Thorgate has taken on its shoulders to show how cool Python is. We organize Code Club for people who are interested in learning Python. It's for free. And we also organize every year a conference, PyCon, which concentrates development in Python. As you can see, there's no apparent health tech companies down there. So these are the companies we have where Thorgate Venture has its stake in. There are no health tech companies here. There is one brain icon, but trust me, it's not a health tech company. It's about industry and warehousing and such. Yeah, moving on. So I think mentioning our values and mantra here is quite on point. If we're talking about health tech and healthcare, then come on, think people, not products. I find that thinking about people and not only concentrating on products is very much in tune with main goals of healthcare. Basically, prevention of premature death. Sorry, I don't try to be very morbid today, but this is something we have to touch today evening. But yeah, prevention of premature death and disability, of course, for the people, so we could live longer. Also, maintenance and enhancement of quality of life, so we could have a better life while we're at it. And to top it off, personal growth and development. And this is perfectly in tune with people. And we are very ambitious, like the values that are brought out here. We're trustworthy, hungry, and open-minded, resourceful, and how we achieve this is by great ambitious team effort. I think it has a ring to it. Our focus areas. So yeah, we do not deal only in health tech. We deal in many different areas, as you can see. And yeah, for those that are not so familiar with Thorgate, you might think that it's all over the place. Can you really have quality if you're jumping from industry to health tech or logistics to fintech? But we do keep our focus areas in respective development teams. And all in all, these four pillars have complemented each other in order to pull in knowledge from different sectors to offer best solutions. And yeah, here are some of the companies we've worked with. Obviously, some are missing, but I'm actively afraid of army of lawyers chasing me down because I broke an NDA. So here with me. Talking about the process. This is our regular by-the-book process. We played a role in many different steps here. It's not always from step 1 to step 4 where we analyze and top it off with support and maintenance. But the key here is that we always do some sort of product analysis. There are examples where we jumped in for product development, wherein product design was not done by us, but we still kicked it off with product analysis. We want to learn the project, understand what we are building, why we are building this. And yeah, there have been, of course, examples where we've done product analysis plus product design and called it the day, in a sense. A great example here will be once we were approached by a client who wanted, not related to Healthtech per se, but yeah, a client who wanted a machine vision based solution that was set to accompany lots of other sensors in order to reproduce the amount of mistakes made in the production process. So fair enough, we kicked it off with an analysis, looked into the problem. And in analysis phase, it turned out that 80% of all problems was a result of one machine, where it was hard for the operators to eyeball the placement correctly. So what it took was building a rack where to put the thing in, and it will always be placed in the correct way, thus saving on developing anything, literally. Why always have the main goal to develop awesome things for a lot of money when you can actually solve it by how to say, a dumber solution in a sense. Anyway, worth mentioning is that we also rarely only do support and maintenance. Of course we do it, but we very rarely, and I don't even know any of the cases where we only done support and maintenance. Why? Because we always like to have our say in what we are building and have our influence, even if a tiny bit, over it. If we only do support and maintenance for an incoming project, it kind of defeats the purpose. Yeah, now that we've looked what Thorgate is and what our main processes are, high level, let's look at what type of projects we've done related to health tech. So, first one, here, the challenge was simple. How do you share sensitive patient data in a modern and secure way? So the problem was that in some of the American states, if medical experts and doctors were sorting out their transplants and donors, they used many kinds of different tools, starting from phone calls, fax machines, even Facebook messengers. And obviously, it wasn't the best in sense of patient data security. And probably doctors using many different channels is also not the best. If some of the doctors send out faxes, some of them write to messenger. I mean, it's a time-sensitive thing and people's lives are at stake. On this occasion, with TXP chat, we can say that the product ownership, including the end user needs and compliance, was on our client side. They were the ones who had the domain knowledge of the industry, meaning that we were there to help to make the vision into reality. And while at that, we were suggesting best ways to achieve the same goal without the system becoming too complex. And then the result was basically, how to say, like a messenger app that is HIPAA compliant. And we'll talk about HIPAA compliance a bit more later on. But eventually, yeah, doctors started using it. Of course, it provided quite a challenge to sell this product because doctors probably were used to fax machines. Moving on. Yeah, a great example where we started off with the analysis and we eventually ended up developing the backend for it. So we did not have any say. Well, we consulted our client, but we didn't have any say and we did not deliver on design and front-end development. This was handled by the client directly. And why this project is worth mentioning is that there were a bunch of young people straight out of university, and they had this idea around migraine and headaches, and they wanted to get something out to the market that could be usable straight away, and they had this grand idea. I'm not going to go that deep into the grand idea. The first idea, and we actually bounced this between us, was to just get an headache diary out to use for people, so you can track your headaches and you can get feedback on it, some sort of data, how you're doing, and etc. And so far, this has set them up this has set the ball rolling, and they're adding new developments, new features to the project, and whilst at that, they're keeping their other medical device development in the R&D process.
Yeah.
So this is the part where I have to be brutally honest. This was done before my time, and I'm not 100% in tune with the details there. And for me personally, it's not useful just to recite materials that I don't really feel at home. But what I can say is that this is another great example where Thorgate went in, analyzed the product together with the client. It ended up in a full clickable design prototype. And based on that, The client could test it, bounce it with different potential clients, investors, etc. But it became sure, slowly but surely, that that this solution wasn't worth time and effort at that point in time. So yeah, this is also a probable, like one probable way how to move forward and just, you know, cut the string rather in the beginning instead of, I don't know, like many hundreds of thousands of euros later. So now we're delving into healthcare and health tech. And I would like to start this off with somewhat of a new buzzword, and obviously it's a bad buzzword, but COVID is something we have to go through all. And I do hope that all of you are nice and healthy and will stay so. But yeah, what happened with COVID? First and foremost, innovation. And why is that so? Well, I think that national lockdowns and overall mentality of staying at home has resulted in a digital surge. So yeah, what are we doing? We are at home. Most of the time we are behind our computers. If we want to socialize with our friends, we use a telephone, computer, whatnot. If we go outside, we might go running. We want to get feedback on our runs. Well, we might buy ourselves an activity monitor or take our phone with us. And overall, spend less time together with people. And when we are together with people, we obviously use less technical solutions in a physical world. So it also changed healthcare's attitude. What I've understood is that regarding healthcare experts and doctors, the demand of technical solutions, rather than being deemed to have, like, okay, I have this new software that I have to use, okay, changed, where now we're seeing that doctors and experts are demanding solutions. I need to have this solution in order to provide service to my customers, patients. And this is because nowadays we need digital touchpoints for contactless services. We don't have the luxury to go to the doctors always and think that we're going to be safe there. In fact, I think most of the people really don't want to go outside and keep their health. But of course, there are people who really don't care about COVID. But this is not the discussion of tonight's topic. And yeah, moving on with the crisis, well, more or less started in March. Then set down a bit in the summertime, and now we're again back at it. You might think resource management is another big thing. While we might think, yes, different tools for experts definitely needed, but resource management, think logistics and supply chain, think the COVID positive patients going to hospitals. A lot of stuff started to, well, there was a surge of need for PPEs in March to understand, do we have enough ventilators? Where the hell are the beds? What's going on? And to move this forward, same goes for experts and their locations. One hospital might get a bigger amount of new patients, might need to relocate the experts with help. How can software solutions help that? Yeah, it's just as a thinking matter. I don't have a direct solution here at hand to show everybody, unfortunately. Regarding common challenges, well, I added a first nice question. Might sound simplistic and stupid, but what problem are we solving? I think it is one of the most important of questions, and even more so, it's very important not to forget this question while you're coming up with a plan, while you are thinking your ideas, and perhaps even moving forward with the plan. And moving forward, how should you evaluate the success? Yep, I have an idea. Well, there's no point in creating projects for working with project's sake. And I added this yet another simplistic measurement here that could render useful for startups who might want to come out with some sort of a minimal viable product. North Star metric, for example, it could, like, for example, what the perhaps good North Star metric will be is more kilograms burned for fitness apps. Same goes for like Spotify's North Star metric is more minutes listened. And yeah, I think this could be helpful for smaller startups as having one number for your organization to measure success. Obviously, this is, if you start growing bigger and bigger, one number to measure your success is a bit too simplistic, but just to get things going. And also regarding healthcare, absolutely bringing something new should take something off the table. I feel and think that healthcare is if anything, strictly no bullshit sector. You have to provide something useful here. And yet another examples, like I mentioned, better tools for healthcare experts, trying to optimize the patient flow. And again, mentioning supply chain and logistics. How can you be useful? And as the last point in this slide, day one ROI. Yeah, you might find that that you found a problem, but the problem is very time critical, and there's no talks of along the lines that, yeah, in 5 years we're going to transform your hospital, or we're going to transform your life or quality. Nope, it's literally 1 month to a few weeks of concentrated development. Sure as hell it's going to be hard, and since day one it's released, it has to be useful, straightforward, and solve instantaneous problems. Yeah, it might be a good way if you find that sort of a problem and you solve it. You might get your foot in the door and great amounts of experience, but most probably it's a hard task to solve on its own as well, and it needs great amounts of effort in a short time span. Even more challenges. So, yeah, regulations. Do you need to worry about regulations? First disclaimer, I'm not a regulatory expert and expert around laws in many different countries, but I think I can share some overall tips and tricks to understand should you worry about these regulations or not. Well, HIPAA is something that is used in America, and on another hand, Medical Device Directive, which is now replaced with Medical Device Regulation, is valid in Europe. And to top it all off, yes, you might find that you have country-specific regulations and laws on top of that. Answering the question, starting with MDR. Basically, if you are building something that deals in well-being, and imagine it like an application or a wearable, you probably don't have to worry about regulations. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't be in tune with the regulations. MDR is 176 pages long, and if I'm not mistaken, the word safety is mentioned over 200 times there. You might find that at some point you have to abide by those regulations. But yeah, general well-being applications software usually does not fall under the Regulatory Act. What else? Software for other general purposes, even when used in healthcare setting, are no medical devices. And yeah, what I forgot to mention is word medical device. Medical device as a software is a thing. So you might think that, yeah, I'm just building an app, I don't need to care about the regulations. That's wrong. So general purpose software, yeah, if you use it in healthcare setting are not always medical devices. And for example, an electronic patient record system, which only replaces paper files, will still not be considered a medical device. Let's give another example, a picture archiving and communication system where only pictures are transferred is not the medical device. But let's imagine the picture archiving and communication system starts offering some sort of information on a picture, how the patient's illness is going on, what should be the next steps, what's going on the picture, then it's a medical device as a software. Few words about the HIPAA. You have to make sure, and what we also did in the TXP chats messenger system software, is something that everything needs to be tracked. What's being done there, who logged in and when. We need to log out users automatically if some time has passed with inactivity. And yeah, all these records, who said what was done when, also authentication. So the security risk like projected is very high, and regarding HIPAA, yeah, it's not a simple log in and be over with it and forget your telephone somewhere. It's more like using different types of biometric logins and of course logging the user out after some time. I mean, you can imagine how it would feel for you just if you have to log in every time you want to use something. Right? Going forward, sensitive data and security. Absolutely, that's the thing. You can't really allow yourself playing around with data as it is sensitive data. Patients care about this, and we have all kinds of different laws and these very same regulations that care about this. But you still want to have data-driven decisions and analytics. Right? Well, possible way here to do is, and how the default here will be data anonymity. Imagine the same wellness fitness app, and you could say that 50% of our users have managed to lose weight. If you go into more detail, that 50% of users in Midtown Tallinn have not managed to lose weight, then first and foremost, not a great style, and secondly, you might run into issues where you are leaking user data. So defaulting to anonymity. Same goes for the solutions. If you build, you have to, well, it makes sense if your users are all masked. Yeah, the users exists, but administrators and other administrative users cannot see the emails per se, cannot see the names, different sensitive health data in addition. So, yep. Let me see. Yeah, and this more or less wraps up the first level challenges you might have or might run into. Of course, there are many bunch of these more, but within these slides, I mainly try to juggle between something that's a wellness app and something that might be a more serious embedded application that is used in an MRI machine that's used in a hospital. Moving on. As you might think, health tech software can be expensive and hard to develop if you take all these matters into account. We have talked about regulations and sensitive data, and What I haven't perhaps touched base on is human factor. You might find that you develop your solution, your product in a rush, but you might come out ahead of time in a sense. You might have high resistance coming from end users, and I think it could be a great example to bring the XP chat in play, where users had to always log in because HIPAA demands this. It's a small thing, but it might render a difficult time in the market selling this. Like, are the doctors, experts going to just that? Like, maybe they'll want to use it. Like, God darn it, I don't want to log into this thing every time. I'll perhaps grab my fax machine or just quick chat in Messenger, right? Testing, another big thing, and if you have to abide by regulations, even bigger. It is, however, still important if you're not the medical device in Europe. Obviously, you want your product to have reliability, and it shouldn't break down on users. Of course, if we take our fitness app and the running sessions altitude info is a bit off, then it's not the major deal breaker. But if the kilometers or distance is greatly off, then, well, of course, nobody really wants to use it, right? With regards to software that falls under regulations, you need to prove your point heavily by covering almost all of the product with different unit and function tests. And this has to be proven. Reports have to exist. And in the end, it might even need to be audited by a third-party company. So yeah, room for mistakes, heavily debatable, depending how close you are to either wellness or real doctor work, so to speak, right? If we're blinking people's lives, then obviously testing and more testing. You might find that your development cost was around 700 hours, and your projected budget and actual spent budget was close to the same amount. So something to keep in mind, definitely. Moving fast and breaking things versus taking it carefully. Yeah, you can imagine me saying that it heavily depends. Wellness app, probably you can move fast. Small startup, small idea, yeah, you can probably move fast. Medical devices, software, you can find ways to move fast there, but in the long run and in your main functionality and product that you're going to push to production, moving fast and breaking things there is probably not the greatest ideas. But still, failing fast. Let's give a quick look why it is sometimes good to fail fast. And yeah, like I mentioned, probably a good idea for younger startups and who are not looking in to develop anything which falls under or a medical device regulation. Early feedback. So yeah, like the example I gave in Helix, where we analyzed it and developed a full clickable prototype, I would call it rather failing fast. And I would even say that probably if the gut feel wasn't there, a few €100,000 saved as well, perhaps. And absolutely, it's like it's mentioned here, high fidelity designs. Trying to spend as less money as possible so you could see the whole picture and run it by with different people. What I meant under including stakeholders to the architecture process is that if you don't have always time to do the primary research, it might take longer. If you want to get something out as quickly as possible, it makes sense, and it's overall a good practice to include patient representatives, different types of medical experts there, even more so marketing and business people who then can actively think about how are we going to generate money. And then moving on, another idea that could render useful here is everybody have heard about MVPs, or minimum viable products. I even sometimes like to call them minimal viable prototypes. But yeah, taking a step back and literally, if applicable, releasing something that has maybe even just a single feature, and let's imagine that feature could only be collecting some sort of data. What you should have there is a clear roadmap with goals that you yourself obviously know, but what you can communicate outside as well. That, hey, if you come here and give your data to us, then in 2 months, 1 year, whatever, we can start giving back, whatever that solution is, right? And you can already start picking up feedback, either from questionnaires, whatnot, analytics, or interviews, and see how you're doing. And of course, through iterative agile development, you can push this forward. In essence, if you have a plan itself coming together, then of course, some point during the plan or multiple times during planning, you might think about who is my supposed customer, who's going to pay the bills, whether it's business to government, business to business, or business to customer. I'm briefly going to skim over of these, what it means. Most of it is down here, but starting probably from the hardest, business to government, we're most definitely, but not always, talking about regulation first. Like I mentioned, yeah, if you develop something for, let's say, supply chain, it might be actually very related to hospital logistics management system, whatnot, there might be a chance that regulations aren't applied there to the point. But still, eventually, it's high barrier to entry and long process and red tape, usually done via procurements, depending on the country, of course, but procurements and tenders. And you also might find that if you deal in procurements, there are rules that your team has to have people with PhDs, master's degrees, etc. So, yeah, high risk, hard to get into. And also, well, if we're talking about procurements, then you might find that agile development is not always supported that well by procurements. It's more of a waterfall development. We have this massive document, and this needs to be done. And of course, people are people, and during year 1 or 2, the client, let's say the hospital, might want some changes. So you might find yourself in hard places in that area. Regarding business to business, heavily depends on an even solution, what you were doing there, what problem you were solving. And perhaps the key point here is that impact evaluation has to make sense, because your partner might abide by medical device regulation. Well, sure as hell it makes sense if you abide by this as well, because they might be in the risk of losing theirs. In the end, it may up costing a lot of money. And if you manage to work together without paying attention to these regulations, yeah, doing these changes isn't that nice, so to speak. And finally, business to customer. Yeah, I think the lowest barrier to get ahead, you'll open yourself up to a massive market. Today, people are interested in health, staying healthy, figuring out if what they eat is healthy, and overall just increasing their life quality, right? But you need to consider that that if you manage to get huge, and I think I've also mentioned it, manage to get huge, then at some point you might find yourself offering some medical advice within that software, and you might bring in regulations, and that's something to look out for. All in all, wrapping it all together, I know that I didn't present any strict problems or ideas today, and I'm not a medical expert and I don't work in hospital, but I think a good way forward here would be to obviously go to the internet, but not only. These are quite hard times for medical healthcare workers, and a lot of these workers express their problems, sometimes vent. We're all people, and they do it on the internet. So if you have time, you're interested, look up these people on Twitter, follow them, look up if you can find blogs that some of these experts have, follow them, and you might strike some gold there. I mean, you might run into an interesting problem and it might spark something. Yep. That's it for me for now. I hope you learned a thing or two and it was useful for you. I'm open for questions that you might have.
So there was one question in the chat already from Olga about what about GDPR? How do you make sure that your solution is compliant from the beginning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, a stupid idea would be to rent your servers in Russia and be over with it, right? But if you go by the usual way and ask the users to read the privacy policy and accept terms of use, both of these should be in place before you go public and start bringing in users, right? If you are dealing with software that only doctors use, then it's not always a matter that they agree on some sort of a thing before they register. It might be where some sort of an administrative user have made users for these. But eventually, based on my experience, this comes from the client side. Something that gets discussed together and assessed, either if they need help with that or not.
Sorry, I was muted. There's another question about how do you estimate the readiness to pay for healthcare related software solutions from hospital side, and what is your experience?
Can you repeat that, or can I read it somewhere?
Yeah, if you click on the chat, I think you would be able to see that.
Give me a second. Just stop sharing. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Yeah, well, readiness to pay for healthcare related software solutions from hospital side. Well, one way would be asking directly how much they're willing to pay, right? That is something that has to be asked for them. Related to procurements and tenders, yeah, this is a longer term path where you build up the relationship and depending on the tender and procurement. Well, most of it, like as it's done in Estonia, most of it should be quite clear what they're paying in the first go if you win the procurement. Hope that answered your question.
There is another question. in the analysis phase, how do you include medical workers or other stakeholders in the process? Is a team provided by the client, or can you include a team to work as an extension to your product team? When talking about releasing new features products, are tools released to a small number of users first and feedback gathered?
Good question. Usually how we've worked with is that that requirements gathering comes from our partner. We don't set out to go visit or go have discussions directly with hospitals always. And sometimes my own main stakeholder is the doctor. And of course, I ask questions to verify that, hey, where did this come from? Is it an actual need by the patients or doctors, etc., or is it something you might have thought of? Well, if it's something that was just thought on the spot, then obviously I'll try to challenge this and say, like, is this the actual need here? Depending on if we can, if you can include a team to work as an extension to a product team, well, definitely it's doable. If the need is there, but so far I don't recall that we've gone down that way. I see that there are another question here. Are tools released to a small number of users first? Feedback gathered. Yeah, definitely. The answer is yes. Even if you are developing a medical device as a software, you want to have your stakeholders, your own consultants in the company that's going to sell that software. You want them to use it. You might include some doctors, analysts there, and they will use it, try it, and their feedback is very valuable. They will let us know is it useful, what's working and what's not working. So definitely, it makes sense to gather that feedback.
Okay. We could give another minute. If there's any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question or write it in the chat. Or if you have a comment, or if you want to share an insight of your own from your experience, feel free to add anything here. I guess not. Well, I guess we could wrap then.
Something popped up.
Yeah. You might want to share your contact details, Sander, in case anyone has a question and wants to get back to you later.
Have you developed any tools for primary healthcare centers, clinics, in regards integrated care? Well, you remember me mentioning army of lawyers. Maybe is the correct answer here. And well, something related to bedside care, yes. I'm afraid and unsure how much I can say. Sorry, but yeah, this is, I think, the most I can give right now. How do I view the future trends? Good question. I actually had a trend slide, and I don't know why I thought that I might be blabbering for too long and deleted it. But all of this COVID situation, I think, has, like I mentioned, turned so much interest in healthcare and developing healthcare, making it more optimized, useful, and future, I think, holds bright. We can talk about, we can think about AI coming in play. We can think that the data we have for the patients, we can analyze this. We can use machine learning to provide machine-based opinions. What could be done? Second. Let's see if I can have the slide back here. Oh no, it's gone. It's gone. Anyway. Machine learning definitely being the key here, and well, moving on, preventative healthcare, so we could live longer and have a better quality of life. Also wearables and tying it all together. Virtual care as well, where nowadays we don't go to the doctors, we perhaps talk with them. Maybe sometime in the future we might go to a place where we don't see a doctor. There's a machine that can take all of the necessary readings from us, and we get the results back. And maybe then later from our homes have a quick discussion or a longer one with our doctor. So yeah, I think these are the most probable ways what's in store for us in the future. Any other questions, ideas, comments?
If not, I was just thinking it might make sense for you to also share your contact details if anyone has any questions later and wants to send it to you directly. I think it would be great.
Of course, give me a second, please.
Also, we have another question. There is one more question though, that in Sweden, where Henrik is from, plenty of people visit the net doctor instead of in real life. Do you see the same thing happening in Estonia?
Yeah, definitely a thing. I'm happy to say that as young and healthy I am, I haven't had a chance to even visit the doctor, I think, in the past year. But in Estonia as well, virtual consultancy meetings is a definite thing here. And the first thing when the March's first wave happened, doctors audibly started demanding and finding solutions how to have virtual consultancy meetings with their patients. Now, if I didn't answer your question, which I'm afraid that I didn't, net doctor, well, if you're thinking about chatbots, perhaps, or like virtual doctors, I'm unsure of that part. I think yesterday I tried visiting WebMD. I had a few symptoms, and lo and behold, I'm gonna die soon. I mean, this was quite useless. But yeah, I hope I answered your question.
I see that. Okay. Someone has also shared a sample of minudoc.ee in Estonia, I guess, telemedicine. And then also there's a question that, so are you saying that with COVID crisis, the health industry is ready for an acceleration, not only transforming, filling in paper forms to digital e-forms, but also developing new processes?
Definitely. Like I've seen, and like I mentioned, the experts themselves have opened up to it, and seeing the usefulness of digital products in these difficult times that we're having currently. And if we saw that maybe a few years ago, before all of this COVID shenanigans, hospitals and doctors generally were quite tamed about new features, new cool things coming aboard, new optimizations, things that could help them out. And we saw people asking questions that may be an ignorant question, but as a figure of speech, asking questions that why are we willing to put so much money and time and resources into developing different medications, drugs. We also have to test them on people. Why couldn't we share the same same way about why we couldn't go the same way about software that could help optimize the doctor's workflow. Think about X-rays that are run through AI that bring out first things that are like point of interest on an X-ray. Things like these, why we are so scared of trying these things out. And I think, yeah, with COVID definitely the interest has sparked, and I do hope it keeps up as well.
Okay. I see that there are more examples of telemedicine in general in Estonia. So there's Vivio Health, and then someone also shared 1220. But I think we would have to wrap now since we're coming to the end of the time. Not the time for the webinar. But yeah, so Sander has shared his email address. If anyone has any questions, of course, feel free to write to him directly, or you could also write to Thorgate. Just you could go to the website and write to us through our contact us page. Before we sign off, maybe we can just take one last question about whether Thorgate develops any health tech tools or products of their own.
Good question. Sorry. Well, in Thorgate, we are heavily interested in having our own spin-offs. And actually, when I showed that slide about the group structure and everything, then there was one company below there in the bunch of logos that is a spin-off of Thorgate. Well, now I'm going to let you down a bit. The spin-off is not really health tech related, it's logistics and green tech, forestry related. So currently, as far as health tech goes, the answer is no. But I'm hoping someday I'll have something on my table that sounds like a good idea, and with what I can forward.
Okay, great. Thank you everyone who joined today. I'm sorry I had to turn off my video because I have an unstable connection, unfortunately, but thanks a lot for joining in. Thank you so much, Sander, for the great presentation. Hopefully we can continue the conversation either with another webinar or with people hopefully spamming you with a lot of more questions. But thank you everyone who joined, and that's it. Thank you. Ciao.
Yeah, thank you all. Ciao.